I still remember the words like they were carved into my chest. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "You're a bad investment." Can you imagine? The person you trusted most, the one you loved, calling you worthless. It hurt. It stung. It made me question everything about myself. But here's the twist, the irony that life threw at me. It's still hard to believe, because weeks later I found out something that made my blood run cold and my heart race at the same time. His new boss, the one he now reports to, happens to be the person I never forgot, the one I should have fought for, the one I let slip away. And now, fate was about to put us all in the same room. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you this. Have you ever been underestimated so badly that you wanted to scream, "Just wait"? Watch me? Well, that's exactly what I did. Stay with me because the story is about to get wild, and trust me, you won't see the ending coming. Let me back up a little, so you understand why his words hit me like a sledgehammer. I wasn't some naive person blindly following love. No, I had worked hard, put my heart, my time, my energy into us. I believed in him. I believed in what we could build together. And then, he decided to judge me like I was some failed stock. A bad investment. Can you believe that? Funny how people think love is a business transaction. But here's the thing. He didn't just see me as a person. He saw numbers, potential, what I could give him. And when he thought I was done growing, done evolving, he walked away. I remember those nights, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every laugh, every fight, asking myself, was it me? Did I fail? And yet through all that pain, I discovered something important. I wasn't broken. I wasn't worthless. I was underestimated, and underestimated people. They're dangerous when they decide to rise. During that time, I focused on myself. I built my career, strengthened my friendships, traveled, learned, grew. Everything he ever claimed I couldn't do. Funny enough, some days I'd laugh and say, if only he could see me now, and here's where it gets interesting. Life has a strange way of balancing the scales. Because while he was busy moving on, climbing the ladder in his new job, and probably bragging to anyone who'd listen, I didn't realize the universe was already writing a plot twist. A plot twist that would make him pause, and maybe even regret. And that, my friends, is where suspense meets reality. You see, he may have thought he was done with me, but the game was far from over. Fate had a way of reconnecting paths, and it wasn't just coincidence. By the end of this story, you'll see why being called a bad investment might just be the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, this is the part where everything changed. The moment that burned itself into my memory forever. I was at a networking event. A fancy, crowded hall full of people pretending to be someone they weren't. And there he was. My ex, looking smug, confident, the same man who once told me I was a bad investment. I'll admit, my stomach dropped. My hands trembled, and just for a second, I wondered if I should have walked out. But then something caught my eye. Something that made my blood freeze and my heart skip a beat. Behind him, smiling politely to everyone, was her. The woman he now calls his boss. The one who got away. I tried to act casual, of course. You know, the I'm fine, everything's fine act. But inside, chaos was erupting. My mind raced. How did life manage to put us all in the same place at the same time? Was this coincidence? Or was it fate having a little fun at my expense? And then he said it, loud enough for me to hear, casual enough to pretend it was normal. I hear she's really killing it now. The words stung more than I thought possible. But here's the irony. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And he had no clue how dangerous underestimated people could be. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. A fire. Not anger, not revenge, something sharper. Something exciting, because in that instant I realized this encounter wasn't random. It was a chance. A chance to prove everything he ever doubted. A chance to reclaim not just my dignity, but my story. And as I walked past them, Trying to look calm while my heart was pounding like a drum, I made a silent promise. He may have called me a bad investment, but I was about to make the most valuable move of my life. Stay with me, because what happened next changed everything. And trust me, you won't see it coming. After that night, I knew something had shifted. Seeing him, seeing her, it was like life handed me a challenge I didn't ask for but couldn't ignore. I walked out of that event feeling alive, not just with memories of the past, but with a fierce determination. I wasn't going to let a label, bad investment, define me. Not anymore. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my own life with a sort of reckless energy. I focused on work, on growth, on building a version of myself that even I couldn't ignore. And let me tell you, there's nothing scarier and more exhilarating than proving to yourself that the person who doubted you wasn't just wrong. They were blind. I started noticing the little victories first. The promotions I'd been quietly earning, the projects that finally got recognition, the small but satisfying moments where people actually noticed my worth. And the more I grew, the more the memory of him calling me a bad investment faded into something else. Into fuel. But here's the twist. The universe isn't patient. It doesn't wait for perfect timing, because while I was thriving, he was still out there, climbing his ladder, moving through life as if nothing had happened. And all the while, the one who got away, his boss, remained a shadow in my mind. The what-ifs, the memories, the if-onlys, they never left me. Then came the day I realized just how small the world can be. I got an unexpected message from a mutual acquaintance. He was working under her now. My heart skipped a beat, and suddenly, all those old feelings, the tension, the curiosity, the unresolved questions, came rushing back. But this time I wasn't scared. I was ready. And oh, the suspense of it all. Seeing them together in emails, in photos on social media, hearing his name linked with hers. It was like watching a movie I had front row seats to. Except this time, I wasn't just the audience. I was the main character. I started imagining the moment when our paths would inevitably cross. The first meeting, the first awkward conversation, the first glance where he'd realize I wasn't the person he once dismissed. And every night, I allowed myself a small, private smile, because I knew the story wasn't over, not even close. Because life has a way of giving you second chances, but only if you're brave enough to seize them. And trust me, when the moment comes, you'll want to be ready. Not just to face the past, but to rewrite it, and then it happened. The moment I never thought I'd see but secretly hoped for. I was at a client meeting, the kind that makes you nervous no matter how confident you are. I walked into the office, scanning the room, and there he was. My ex, and next to him was her. My heart stopped for a second. The one who got away. The one I never forgot. It was like the universe had decided to stage the perfect setup just to see what would happen next. I told myself to breathe, to act normal, but normal felt impossible. Every instinct in my body screamed at me, "This is it. This is your chance." As I walked closer, our eyes met. His filled with recognition, and maybe a hint of surprise. Hers, polite but piercing, as if she already knew something I didn't. And suddenly, the tension in the room was thick enough to taste. I had to remind myself, this wasn't about revenge. Not yet. This was about control, about presence, about showing the world and him that I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. We exchanged small talk at first, polite, professional. But underneath, every word, every gesture was charged with history. I could see him calculating, maybe even regretting, but I stayed calm. I smiled, laughed at the right moments, let my confidence shine. And her? She seemed genuinely intrigued, curious, and then it hit me, the irony. The very person he had underestimated the one he called a bad investment, was now in a position that even he couldn't ignore. And she recognized the same spark I remembered from years ago. Suddenly, the tables weren't just turned. They were flipped completely. I wanted to say something that would make him understand the full weight of his mistake. But I didn't, not yet. Instead, I let the moment linger, letting the suspense build, letting him wonder, letting her see who I had become. Because here's the truth. The twist wasn't just in seeing them together. It was realizing that life had given me a second chance, a chance not just to cross paths with the one I never forgot, but to rewrite the story entirely, to show that a bad investment can become the most valuable asset in your own life story. And in that moment, I knew something crucial. The next steps would decide everything. Would I play it safe, let them slip away again, or would I take control, embrace the suspense, and turn the tables for good? Stay with me, because what happens next will shock you. The day finally came. The day I couldn't avoid anymore. I walked into that room, my heart pounding, every nerve on fire. There he was, my ex, looking just as confident as he always thought he was. And there she was, his boss, the one I never forgot, calm, composed, and radiant. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel hurt. I felt alive. He tried his usual charm, smiling like nothing had ever happened. But this time, I wasn't the same person he once dismissed. I held my head high, my voice steady, my confidence undeniable. "Good to see you," I said, and the words carried weight. Not arrogance, not revenge, but proof. Proof that I had grown, that I had thrived. As we talked, I watched his subtle reactions, the flicker of surprise, the slight hesitation in his tone. And her eyes. They were on me too, but with recognition, with admiration, with something that felt like respect for the person I had become. Every word I said, every story I shared, carried the energy of someone who had been underestimated, but refused to stay small. And then he said it. The words I'd secretly longed to hear. I didn't realize how far you've come. A tiny apology, buried in surprise and maybe a hint of regret. But I didn't need him to say more. I didn't need his validation anymore. I had already proven it to myself. The tension was electric. I felt a rush, half thrill, half vindication, as I realized the power of being underestimated. He had called me a bad investment, but here I was, thriving, respected, confident. And she saw me not as a past mistake, but as someone remarkable. I smiled, letting the silence stretch just long enough to let the moment sink in. The irony wasn't lost on me. The tables had turned. Life had given me the stage, the timing, the presence, and I had seized it. As I walked out of that room, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't known I was missing. No shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just the quiet, undeniable truth. I had reclaimed my story. I was no longer a bad investment. I was invaluable. And if you're watching this, take it from me. Being underestimated isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of the most thrilling, empowering chapter of your life. And trust me, the best part, that chapter is yours to write. Walking out of that room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a mix of relief, triumph, and something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. For so long, his words haunted me, echoing in my mind, making me question my worth. But now I knew the truth. Being called a bad investment wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a chapter I wrote for myself. I realized that life doesn't need to hand you revenge to feel satisfying. Sometimes it's the quiet victories, the growth you can see in yourself, the respect you earn without even trying, that sting the doubters the most. And yes, seeing him, seeing her, the one I never forgot, it was a thrill. But the real victory? It was mine, inside, unseen, unclaimed by anyone else. Here's the thing. Being underestimated, dismissed, or labeled doesn't define you. What defines you is how you respond. Do you crumble or do you rise? Do you let someone else's perception of your worth become your reality? Or do you rewrite your story on your own terms? I chose to rewrite mine. And every time I think about that moment, the encounter, the surprise, the tension, I smile because I know something important. Life rewards those who refuse to settle. Life rewards those who take control of their narrative. And life has a funny way of making sure the underestimated never forget their power. So if you've ever felt undervalued, dismissed, or called a bad investment by someone who couldn't see your worth, remember this: your value isn't up to them. Your story isn't theirs to tell. You have the pen. You have the power. And when the right moment comes, the world, and maybe even those who doubted you, will finally see what you always knew. You are invaluable. And trust me, there's nothing more satisfying than proving it without even trying to be seen. Sometimes the most thrilling revenge isn't in confrontation. It's in thriving so fiercely that the past can't touch you anymore. Remember that. Hold on to that. And when life throws you a twist, a test, or an unexpected encounter, be ready. Because your story, just like mine, is only getting started. And there you have it. A story about being underestimated, dismissed, and labeled a bad investment. And how life can surprise you in ways you never imagined. The truth is, we all face moments where someone doubts our worth, where the world seems to stack the odds against us. But the real power lies in what we do next. Do we shrink or do we rise? I hope this story inspires you to reclaim your own narrative, to thrive even when others doubt you, and to never forget your value. Because the most satisfying victories are the ones we earn quietly, without needing anyone's approval. If this story resonated with you, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a story of suspense, drama, and life-changing twists. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever been called a bad investment? How did you rise above it? I'd love to hear your story.